Hello, today I'm going to show you how to remove reflections from artwork when you are photographing it. Now, I've seen some comments in other videos where people have said they really don't care about learning why this stuff works. They just want to know how as quick as possible. So this is for you. First, you need to put a polarizing filter on your camera. Now, there's circular polarizers and linear polarizers. If your camera has a mirror in it, it needs to be a circular polarizer. If it is a mirrorless camera, either will work. If you have a polarizer and you don't know which kind it is, later in the video I'll show you how to figure that out. Now, the next thing you need is polarizing film for your lighting. In my case, I use strobes as I do not have a room that I can completely black out, and you can't have ambient light affecting the color of your photograph. So I'll add a link in the description of where I bought the polarizing film. Now, as you shoot, you can rotate the filter on the front of your polarizing filter. You're gonna do this until the reflections are gone or until they're at a place that you are happy with your image. Now, after you reach that place, you're gonna take a photograph of this all over your image. And you're gonna need to set your white balance and set your exposure to make sure when you put your cursor on the gray card in your photo, you're at 50 for neutral gray. And you can do this to make sure your lighting is even, but also that your exposure is accurate. After you do this, you're gonna shoot this to make your profile to get your colors accurate. Now, if you don't have one of these, you still need to set your filter before you adjust your camera's exposure, because as you rotate it, it's going to brighten and darken your scene. Now, that's basically it, but the one thing I need to add is if you're using a filter, it is going to boost the saturation in your image. You're likely going to need to bring down the saturation after you take your shot. I do this just with my eye. I use a calibrated monitor and I compare my piece to my photograph with my eyes, and I bring the saturation down until they're equal. It's usually about 15 or 20 in Lightroom. All right, now if you're still here, you want to understand why this works. So light is waveforms going in all different directions all over the place, right? When light hits something and bounces off, reflects, it is polarized. That means the light is moving one direction, the waveform. This way, this way. Now that's generally going to be in the same plane as what the light is bouncing off. Okay, so the way a polarizer filter works is it's basically a bunch of parallel lines. This way, as you rotate it, goes like this. Now your light's coming like this. If you're rotated this way, it's gonna stop those polarized waveforms of light. If it's this way, they're still gonna pass through. So if you have these parallel lines and they turn, it blocks it, right? See how that works? So by rotating our filter, we're essentially blocking out all the light. Now, when you're doing this, your filter is going to have a little arrow on it. And I generally put mine at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever you want to call it. You need to make sure the film on your strobes are both going the same way. If one's like this and one's like this, it's not going to work as well. All right, so for my polarizing film, I just got my standard reflectors and I cut these shapes out of the film and I use these little clips to clip the film to the reflector. Now, one really cool thing about this brand is it has a clear edge on one side. So I can use that and always make sure that my two strobes are in the same orientation as far as the polarizing film. The reason we're putting film on our strobes and not just using the polarizer on its own is because this is going to polarize the light coming out of the lights. So they're going to hit your piece polarized going one direction and bounce off going that direction. It's just going to give you a much more controlled beam of light. So when I'm shooting a piece that has reflections, now I basically do this on every piece I shoot. I set my lights up at about a 30 to 45 degree angle from the piece. I want to keep my lights pointing straight and I want my piece of art as vertical as possible because I don't want the polarized waveforms bouncing all over different directions. So I'm trying to keep everything as parallel and perpendicular and straight to each other as possible. Now, I bought a linear polarizer before I realized that I could use my circular. And for some reason, when my polarizer is set at 90 degrees from my film, I get a dark band across the top of the frame. And the only way I can fix this is by pointing my lights way up, and it just seems funky. I haven't actually reached out to the company yet to see if it's a flaw in the filter. If anybody out there knows why this might be doing it, please reach out, leave a comment below. But after realizing that basically a circular polarizer will work too, since I'm using a mirrorless camera, I went back to using my really nice circular polarizer that I had from landscape photography, and the problem went away. So for now, I'm using that circular polarizer. The difference with a circular and a linear polarizer, a circular polarizer is basically a linear polarizer with what's called a quarter wave plate on one side of it. And that's because with mirrored cameras, light would go into the camera and bounce all around and mess up the autofocus systems and the metering systems in your camera. So that's why I say if you have an SLR, you have to use a circular polarizer. A linear polarizer is basically just like two pieces of the film, they do their thing. But from all the information I have gathered, that quarter wave plate isn't actually gonna do any harm if you have a mirrorless camera, so you can go ahead and use a circular polarizer on your shots. If you don't have either, a linear polarizer is quite a bit cheaper, so you may wanna go that route. As soon as I figure out what's going on with mine, I'll update the comments below, and I will also link in the comments below the one that I purchased. It's a Hoya. The selection of linear polarizers is relatively slim. There's a lot of Tiffins. I prefer not to buy Tiffins because I have a really nice camera and really nice lenses, and I don't want to put a really cheap filter in front of my lens. Okay, now if you have a polarizer and you want to know which kind it is, this is how you tell. Just look through it at anything reflective. Turn it, see that it's working, turn it around. Does it still work? If it still works, it's a linear polarizer. That's because, like I said, it's just two of the same thing working with each other. A circular polarizer is that with the quarter wave plate and will not work reversed. So if when you turn it around, it doesn't work, that means you have a circular polarizer. Now that's pretty much it. Polarizer filter on your lens, polarizing film on your strobe, get your reflections to where you want, and then meter your shot. Make sure that your light is even by doing it all over the piece. After you've metered your shot, create your ICC profile. And don't forget that your shot is going to be more saturated when you're using one of these filters. So you're going to need to tone the saturation down a bit by eye to get your final result. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.